deeelicious, back with another video, cooking up delicious vegan recipes for you to try at home. And this week we have Cinco de Mayo coming up, so I thought I would make some Mexican inspired recipes, and I'm going to start with churros. Now, churros are awesome, and if you've never had one, they are a lot like a donut. In fact, they're kind of the skinny version of a sugar-covered donut. Not that they will make you any skinnier or that they're any less in calories, but they're kind of a stick-shaped, and they're covered in cinnamon and sugar, and they are really delicious. So most churro recipes are made with egg, but these ones do not have any egg or any dairy in them. And I did a lot of recipe testing this week, so I have had my fill of churros for sure, and I really need to watch my figure. So it's a good thing that I have a ravenous 14-year-old son at home to help me eat these. I told him he could have as many as he wanted, and in the blink of an eye they disappeared, so I must have done a good job. Now, I do have Mexican heritage myself. I'm half Mexican, but I did not actually grow up eating churros. My mom didn't cook that much Mexican food. We usually had Mexican food when we went to my grandmother's house, and I don't remember her ever making churros. So it was something I didn't eat until much later in life. And perhaps the first time I actually had them was when I was doing my master's thesis research in Mexico a couple of years ago. And we were staying in a little town called Teuchitlan, which is in Jalisco in West Mexico and quite near to the town of Tequila. Yes, the town where they make tequila. And it's a sleepy little town, Teuchitlan, of about 2,000 people. And on Sundays, the town just really comes alive, and all sorts of little restaurants and food stands pop up literally out of people's living rooms or on their front porches, or they set up little taco stands in front of their houses, and there's a main square and there's all kinds of food stands there. So we were walking around one night and a truck pulled up and they brought out this huge vat of hot oil, and they had their dough already made up, and they just started making churros. And they were the best churros I've ever had. Of course, I didn't have that much to compare them to because I wasn't really that familiar with churros, but they were delicious. And looking up recipes online, I found that most recipes called for eggs, but I did find some that did not have eggs, and I played around with them a little bit and came up with what I feel is the perfect vegan churro. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, and they're really easy to make, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's get started. For our ingredients, we're going to need sugar. I used organic sugar, some vegan butter, a little bit of salt, and an all-purpose flour. I haven't tried it with gluten-free, but I'm sure it would work, and 1 cup of water. So we add our water to a pan on about medium heat, add our butter, our salt, and the sugar, and then I just give it a little stir and stir it up until the butter has started to melt, and then we're going to bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, you take it off of the heat. I just set it on a little towel, and then I poured in the flour and started to mix that up. And you're going to want to mix it until you have a fairly stiff, sticky dough. And for our coating, we need about half a cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then some oil for frying. Now, you are going to need some type of piping bag, preferably with a star-shaped tip. I found this one at Michael's. I believe it was an 8M size, but don't quote me on that. But it does help to have the ridges. And then you are going to need to put your tip into a piping bag. I used these plastic disposable ones because I had them around, but I really don't recommend them. I did have some problems with them bursting. And they are plastic, and I am trying not to use plastic anymore. I do recycle, but I recommend if you're going to buy a piping bag to get a reusable silicone one. And then you're just going to want to fill the piping bag with your dough, and when it's filled, you are going to twist the top to kind of seal it up and push the dough down towards the bottom of the tip, and then you'll be ready to go. So here I have a pan with some really hot oil in it. If you have a deep fryer, you can use that, but I don't have one. And I just test the heat of the oil by placing a little blob of the dough in there, and when it browns up in about a minute or so, I know that the oil is hot enough. And you just squeeze some of the dough into the oil and cut it off with some scissors or a sharp knife, and then use your tongs to straighten them out and to flip them over so that they get nice and golden brown on all sides. Then I just place them on a plate lined with paper towels to drain off some of the excess oil. They do have oil and sugar, and they are not the most diet-friendly food in the world, but they are so good. And you definitely want to try to roll them in the sugar and the cinnamon while they're still warm, because the warm oil will help the sugar stick. And there they are, looking so beautiful, golden brown, kind of sparkling from the sugar. Oh, so tempting. So that's it. They're pretty easy to make. The only special equipment you need is that little tip, but if you don't have one, you can always just use like a Ziploc bag and just cut the tip off of one of the corners, and you have a piping bag. It doesn't necessarily have to have the ridges. So I believe that traditionally these are served with some kind of chocolate dipping sauce. Of course, when I got them on the streets in Mexico, they didn't come with any kind of sauce, and they're really delicious on their own. And since I'm trying to watch my calories, I decided not to go with the chocolate sauce today, but if I was going to a special occasion or having people over, I would definitely try making a vegan version of the chocolate dipping sauce. But for now, I'm just going to give one of these a try. Man, they are so good. That cinnamon and sugar on there is just amazing, and the little ridges actually give it kind of an extra little crispiness on the outside because they cook a little more than the rest of it. And I think it actually helps hold in the sugar and the cinnamon. The first batch I made, I didn't have the right size tip, and it wasn't a star tip either, so it was smooth, and the sugar and cinnamon didn't stay on it quite as well. But this really reminds me of cinnamon sugar toast that I used to make a lot when I was a kid, but a little more like a donut. So good. These are really dangerous, so I'm glad that I have my 14-year-old around who is quite thin and growing and can eat whatever he wants. It's not fair, but he will certainly eat these up in a flash, and then I don't have to worry about being tempted. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you hit that little notification bell, you'll get notified when I post a new video, and you want to stick around for that because in a few days I'm going to have another delicious, easy, vegan, Mexican-inspired, Cinco de Mayo inspired recipe that is really easy to make and perfect for taking to parties or whenever you want a little snack or a meal, and they're great, so you don't want to miss that. and I am going to finish this up, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.